Today, I'm going to tell the story of what was the prison equivalent of a bank robbery. You see, every prison has an area called behind the wall. Behind the wall is the name given to the area where they have tools or equipment that inmates need to be able to access, but where if they were given unsupervised access to these things, they could cause quite a bit of mischief. For instance, many prisons have vocational training programs, perhaps metalworking. Inmates in a metalworking program need access to lathes and drills and things like that so they can learn this trade. But if they were given unsupervised access to these tools, they would come back to the yard with weapons, handmade keys, heck, ladders, who knows? Inmates are a creative bunch. The way that the officers make sure that anything that is put behind the wall stays behind the wall instead of being brought onto the yard is through the use of a facility called work change. Work change is a long building where once you enter it, you remove all of your clothes and you're strip searched. An officer looks through everything you are wearing and makes sure you don't have anything hidden in the clothes. He then searches the inmate and makes sure he doesn't have anything hidden on or perhaps even in his person. They're very thorough. They check your hair, they check both sides of your hands, inside of your ears, your nostrils. They expect you to run your hand on the inside of your gums to make sure you don't have anything there. They check your genitals, your anus. They check the webs of your feet. They are very thorough to make sure that nothing is taken from behind the wall onto the yard. This is a very effective and efficient means of doing this, and I think it's clear that this has to be done in order to maintain the security of an institution. But inmates, by definition, they're criminals, and many of them are clever criminals. And a lot of guys spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get things from behind the wall onto the yard because they're intrinsically valuable. This is the story of, again, the equivalent of a bank robbery, done by a gentleman with whom I was acquainted named Flacco. Flacco had one of those names that honestly doesn't make any sense, but it had been his name and he wasn't going to change it. You see, whenever Flacco was 16, he was a skinny guy, and so they called him Flacco. It's Spanish for skinny. But 30 years and 120 pounds later, really his name should have been Gordo, because this dude was not skinny at all. He weighed about 300 pounds and wasn't even really that tall. But he wasn't just going to change his name, so Flacco is what he went by. Flacco was clever. I saw a number of times where he used little tricks to make his day-to-day life easier. You could tell that he was a thinker, that he came up with creative solutions to problems that other people hadn't considered. And he set about trying to come up with a solution to how to get things through work change. You see, he worked in the main kitchen on D Yard at CSATF. This is a large industrial kitchen where they prepare the food for the entire prison. You figure there were about 7,000 inmates at CSATF at this time. That's 21,000 meals a day. This is a big kitchen. And he worked in the warehouse, meaning that whenever the trucks of food arrived, it was his job to take the food off of the trucks and put it onto a big flat cart and then move it to the various parts of the kitchen. He'd take sugar and take it to the bakery, he'd take meat and take it to the fridge, etc., etc. One day, about halfway through his shift, and remember, Flacco was a big guy, he was pushing the cart and he waited until he was in front of an officer and he kind of grabbed his chest and said, I don't feel so good, I gotta sit down. And he sat down on the flat cart that he'd been pushing, which was empty. The officer looked at him and said, hey, are you all right? And then he lay back and went, oh God, I think I'm having a heart attack, I need help. And the officer immediately got on his radio and called for medical staff to come and help Flacco because he was having a heart attack. And the medical staff came running and they brought a gurney, but Flacco was already lying flat on this flat cart. And because he weighed, again, over 300 pounds, they decided to just push the flat cart to the medical area where he could be evaluated and see if he needed to get onto an ambulance. And they're pushing this cart and they go around work change because this is an emergency, and they're doing the investigation on him, checking his pulse, checking his eyes, talking to him, seeing if he's okay, and he's just trying to move things along, get onto an ambulance. He really wants to be done with this, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. At which point an officer comes walking out of work change and announces, "Hey, I need to look at that flat cart. We're missing all kinds of stuff from back in the kitchen." Under the flat cart, Flacco had put 3 giant hams, a big bag of onions, and about 50 pounds of sugar that he had stolen from the bakery. This was probably over $1,000 worth of contraband items that he would have been able to sell on the yard. And he'd known that they were going to slide him right through work change with the cart because nobody wanted to help pick up a 300 and something pound guy and put him on a gurney. He didn't quite make it. I mean, he was right there at the finish line whenever the officers realized what was going on, because his demeanor had changed. He just wanted to get off the flat cart and have them forget about it. And the best part of the Great Prison Ham Robbery of 2010 was he didn't even get in trouble for this. I mean, they wrote him up, and he could have gotten in trouble, but his defense was, "I didn't put the stuff on the cart. I didn't know it was there. I thought I was having a heart attack. It's not my fault you didn't search the cart like your job is to do." The lieutenant thought this was a reasonable defense, and he was found not guilty of stealing any of this stuff out of the kitchen. Like I said, clever guy with unique solutions to problems. Anyway, the moral, the thing I'll leave you with, and this is such a little moral because this is a little story, is enjoy your day-to-day little things that make you happy. Because in prison, you have to have a bank robbery if you want a ham. Out here in the real world, you go and get yourself a ham, so enjoy it.